Welcome to this edition of the Times Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate the discussion. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. Our discussion today is in association with Capgemini, and we will be discussing deep tech startups, especially in the context of CPR, the consumer products and retail industry, and the banking and insurance industry. India has been witnessing a surge in deep tech startups, and we will look at the value they bring to larger enterprises. To discuss this, we have with us three very seasoned professionals. We have with us Nagarajan, Meenakshi, Sundaram. Nagarajan is Vice President of IT at Olam. Olam International is a Singapore-based food and agribusiness company operating in nearly 60 countries. Nagarajan heads digital transformation programs focusing on marketing and branding, supply chain, sustainability and traceability, and smart factories and farms. He is also heading the UI UX group focusing on user experience and design for digital solutions, and is running R&D initiatives on new technologies, AR, VR, 5G, digital twins, and data science. Prior to Olam, Nagarajan was with Infosys for 15 years, including in Infosys' products and platforms division, Edgeworth. Welcome, Nagarajan.
Thanks, Vijay.
We have Alok Nayak. Alok is Capgemini Senior Director of Consumer Product Retail Industry Hub in India. In this role, he works closely with the business units to drive business growth across multiple clients. Alok has more than 25 years of experience in consulting, business development, project management, competency development, working across companies like Siemens, HCL, Satyam, and Steria. Welcome, Alok. And we have with us Ranjan Pradhan. Ranjan is Director of Capgemini's Applied Innovation Exchange in Hyderabad. Ranjan joined Capgemini in 2020 and he's been instrumental in setting up the Innovation Exchange. The objective of the exchange is to foster open innovation. Ranjan helps drive the innovation agenda for clients, co-create solutions that can scale for enterprise needs, and develops new value proposition for customers, end customers, applying cross-industry innovation. Prior to this, Ranjan also spent several years in Infosys and Edgeworth. Welcome, Ranjan.
Thank you, Shilpa.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Nagarajan, Alok, and Ranjan. Let me start with this basic question. What is deep tech and why is it important? Nagarajan, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So deep tech, is fundamentally a technology and innovation that has a potential, to disrupt, and transform the world. It is also likely to make a lasting impact, a deep impact on society. Right? It's not just a regular run-of-the-mill technology, but things that will make a significant difference on the way we live and the way we do things. And I would say there are three main imperatives which are right now, which will make this deep tech, more important. One is the world is more connected than ever before. With the deep internet penetration, with the mobility, really becoming mainstream in a lot of countries, and with the cheap data being available, the world is more interconnected. Which means that so what I want to buy, where I want to sell to, there are no barriers, physical barriers anymore. You can buy from anywhere and sell to who you want. And so this deep tech is going to play an important role, to help organization tap into this opportunity, where you can do things without any kind of restriction. Number one. Second point is data. So with the availability of cheaper, with the organizations being able to tap a lot of data, be it on the web channel, be it on the mobile channel, with latest technologies, there's a lot of data with us now. So what do you do with the data, right? So that's where, with the availability of good skill sets on the on the AI space, it's right time for how to tap into this data and get some meaningful insights, that can help the organization differentiate, their offerings, from the competition. The last part is, the new consumer, right? As you all know, the whole consumer base is changing. The Gen Y, Gen Z, the way they see things, the way the experience they want when they walk into a retail store, or the experience they want when to do a simple banking transaction is all different now. And the COVID is really fast track, those things. So it's also important for organizations to look at how to differentiate our consumer experience, so that we can cater to these new generations. And lastly, not but the least, is the security, because as we look at all these, right, end of the day, all these have to be done in a very secure fashion, and cyber security is really a very big threat, which has become more prominent with the COVID. So it's important, how do we develop all this, which is still secure when we take it enterprise today.
So technologies that can have a very deep impact on society in general. So that so what are some of these key technology areas? I mean, right now, which are the ones that have taken prominence within this entire deep tech stack?
Yeah, I would say there are many things to look at, but I would say that top three, in my opinion, are one is the augmented reality and virtual reality. The first one, because I talked about the COVID has really, there's no physical interaction anymore between the customers, between the suppliers. The consumers are trying to shop from home, so there's more necessity, for the organizations, to look at how they can bring in the augmented reality and virtual reality in their offerings. So to encourage people. To encourage our customers to come and see what they typically see in person, to entice the consumers to experience it's a e-commerce shop, right, virtually, or maybe a physical store as a virtual store. That's one important area. I think it's going to really see a lot of traction in the coming time. And next one is the AI, right? I talked about the data. So with the data being available, with a lot more computing capacity available with us. So that's another area where how do we make our cities efficient, smart cities? How do we make our transportation efficient? How do we make our our warehouse efficient, right? Warehousing. How do we make our the banking experience efficient? So that's where the whole AI. How do we use AI to look at data and help business to predict what's going to happen? These are the two things I would say would definitely have a lot of traction in the coming years.
Okay. Of course, AI, we keep hearing a lot about it. Interesting that you mentioned AR, VR as well. Somewhere we get the feeling that at least in India, the number of startups in AR, VR is still quite small and limited is the sense we get. But globally might be a different story. Alok and Ranjan, I mean, what is your sense? Which are some of these technologies that are becoming really important?
Okay, I think I would like to add on to a couple of things which Nagarajan just mentioned. As they say, the deep tech is the new wave of innovation. Let me put it that way. Now, apart from the beyond technology, I would say that it actually helps in solving a lot of global challenges. Now, first is, let's say you talk about AI, as you rightly mentioned. Now, it's actually getting increasingly utilized for climate change. Okay, so Air France, I'll just take an example. They use something called Skybridge. Okay, it's an AI/ML platform to provide a series of recommendation actions that can actually reduce the fuel consumption by almost 5%. Okay, that's point number one. Second is this deep tech is used quite a lot in terms of creating solutions and products that actually people require, on a day-to-day basis. That means you talk about curing of diseases, okay, fixing healthcare, or transforming the industry with autonomous robots and food sustainability. So some of these areas are very, very important beyond the technology platform. Now coming back to what are the specific areas? Yes, right mention AI, ML being the top, but the other innovation applications to the existing emerging technologies. That is also important. Your high processing capabilities like quantum computing, for example, blockchain, or let's say computer imaging. So they are equally important. Now, if you look at the overall figures, globally, most of the deep tech startups, they actually address at least one of the SDGs of UN, United Nations soft, sustainability development goals. So at least 97% of the startups, they use one of those SDGs. So out of which 87%, let's say, they target the good health and well-being industry, and around 47% to 50% they target around the climate action. So that's the kind of figure I'm talking about. Now, these are the things which we keep talking. What are the value we keep adding? But then we also need to be aware of the fact that it has, they are unique in their impact. Okay, in terms of time scale and capital. So deep tech often requires a lot of early stage funding for R&D, for example, or prototyping, or validating the hypothesis and technology development. So if you look at the cycle from R&D, from concept to implementation is quite long. So I think we also have to really be cognizant of these aspects when we talk about deep tech, in my opinion.
Okay. Ranjan, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So as Alok rightly mentioned, deep tech is being considered as a fourth wave of innovation, and he talked about SDG goal. 66% deep tech ventures are more focused on advanced technology. And if you see, one step back, I will take. If you see, deep tech is revolutionary, and organizations believe that it brings competitive advantage if they are considering deep tech as their strategy roadmap rather than a peripheral activity. And post pandemic, I will combine AI with IoT, because around 2/3 of deep tech are focused on AI IoT, because IoT gives the data, AI analyze the data and produce the desired business results. And if you see, AI space is around 15,000, 1,500 across 48 countries. That's the count, and it is continuously increasing. Second one is the blockchain aspects, the technology behind Bitcoin. And in FS industry, it's creating a lot of success stories. The blockchain adoption, which was before COVID, and the adoption now is dramatically changed. If you see APAC, a lot of banks are in trade finance, as you say. It's a very complex business, having cross geography, cross currency, and there are many unstructured data that they do in the regular operations. Blockchain is essentially giving I'll say step in terms of weighing out them from the complexity, and it was not embraced the way it's supposed to be. And and blockchain has long way to go. It's just a start, and as blockchain technology is sector agnostic, and potentially it is going to be replicated across all industries. And that's what one say. And second part is quantum computing, as Alok mentioned. It's in early stage exploration phase, but essentially it is helping in terms of for virtual drug screening campaign by leveraging quantum inspired algorithm in COVID-19. So that's my take on 2 3 technology.
Okay, blockchain. Yeah, beginning to hear more and more about that. The quantum, of course. Shilpa?
Yeah, Ranjan, maybe coming first to you. In India, what kind of growth do we see in deep tech startups here? What technologies are the most exciting here? If you can throw some light, and Alok and Nagarajan can chime in.
Okay, so deep tech startup base in India is growing in a very rapid pace, 40% CAGR that we are talking about. Number of startups leveraged by deep tech has grown by 3.5 times. And there is a significant momentum that we are seeing in deep tech space, with increased interest of venture capital firms and funding agencies to invest in deep tech startups. And if you see, there are some 14% total investment last year, as compared to 11% on a previous year. And coming back to technology, 87% of deep tech investments were on in analytics, AI, ML, IoT. And if I may take couple of examples where we as Capgemini associated would be Quan Labs for cybersecurity, quantum. Then we have Settlement, Cryptsy, Elemential in blockchain, then Active AI, and RTVAC, Vatic AI from AI-based insurtech platform perspective. Then Sempia, we had a engagement last year on Decision Lab, specializing analytics embedded product solution for hyper personalization, that giving the best customer experience. Then Chimera Labs in terms of creating synthetic data, and then there are many, and the list goes on. Alok can throw a lot of such engagement from CPR as well.
Yeah, I think I'll add a couple of things here. So in India, if you look at a lot of these young entrepreneurs, okay, who are actually going beyond the usual sectors that the startups have been functioning so far. Let's say the e-com, the fintech, or a edtech, or a healthcare kind of a space within a traditional space. Okay, they're using more and more of their engineering knowledge and problem-solving capabilities to build a lot of these innovation solutions. Now, the reason why this has become very strong is because in India there's a complete cohesive ecosystem which is available. Okay, and we see a lot of talent availability around that. Plus, the investors are willing to back all these ventures. Now we have as Capgemini worked on many startups, okay, I have actually spoken to a lot of my clients across fashion, let's say grocery or DIY, which is do-it-yourself space, and food and beverages. And some of the examples I can take, let's say some called Poshak, for example, which is purely a fashion a startup, or Grey Orange. They are purely a supply chain, a startup, or Recipe Book. All these startups, we have worked jointly with our customers, okay, and it so happened that when we are engaged with the customers and identified the real challenge, the business challenges, what we thought is there is something which is already available with the startup. So there's no point of us to really reinvent some of these tools and technologies. Why not we collaborate? And that's the best part about the way we operate, completely taking the entire ecosystem and solving the client problems. Yeah.
Okay. Nagarajan?
Yeah, to add to what Alok said, yeah, absolutely. Talking from the mainstream organization perspective, I think that one of the important, we talk about ecosystem, right? Ecosystem, in my view, has many aspects. One, there's this startup. You need these venture capitalists who are going to fund this startup, and then you need this, the IT service providers will be able to, set up the lab, and then you also need, the mainstream organization who can give the real use cases. End of the day, right? I think that's when, all these deep tech technologies can be put to good use, and we can see the real output that comes out of it. I think, as Alok said, a lot of organizations are not looking at this deep tech as more like a nice to have, but it's more of a must have, to differentiate offerings. And that's where, we also, instead of reinventing the wheel from scratch, how do we kind of collaborate, with what is already available, with the startups, or with the startup plus, Capgemini kind of ecosystem, how do we collaborate? We can really, take 2-3 steps, right, quicker, right, than what we would take if we go with the traditional approach. And that is where the whole collaboration is coming into play. And I think India, right, particularly talking about agro space, is another area where we see a lot of new ideas, new tractions, right from the how to use image analytics to determine if a crop is infected the way it is, how to give recommendations based on image analytics to say, okay, by the way, your crop is this infected, why don't you do this, right? How do you use satellite imagery to look at whether are we going to have a good bumper season for the monsoon or is going to be a bad season? How to, right? So a lot of things are we see a lot of good ideas which are coming, and traceability part is another important thing. I think Alok talked about it, because now with the consumers becoming more and more aware of, they are more keen about if I eat a chocolate bar, right? Is this the chocolate that I'm eating now, is it coming from a source which is sustainable? How much water is consumed? How many carbon footprint? What is is there any child labor involved? In that chocolate? So all those awareness are with the consumer. So it's important for us to trace. Right now, okay, this bar of chocolate, that's where the blockchain and other solutions are going to play an important role to ensure that we give that, we're able to trace back and then give the confidence to consumers. Yes, what they eat is something is coming from a sustainable source. Actually.
Okay. Since you mentioned AR, VR, you are seeing a lot of action there, is it, Nagarajan?
Yes, absolutely. So if you have to talk about few areas, I would say, for example, if you look at the onboarding, right, employee onboarding, right, this last 18 months, right, I think a lot of companies now were in lockdown and people have joined virtually, right, sitting from wherever they are. So the whole one dimension is how do we kind of make this onboarding experience, right, how to virtually bring your culture, what you are, right, to employees in a virtual fashion, right. That's one that will make the whole onboarding interesting, because what has happened last 12 months is people just come, we see a name, and then they start working, right. So the whole physical touch is not there. So that's one area from the HR perspective. How do we make this whole onboarding experience as good as what you would have done physically, and also the from the customer perspective, right. For example, customers used to visit factories, visit the farms or various other things, right. Now all those are gone, right. Now how do we bring all those, right, virtually, right, to them so they can experience it, right, and then it will go a long way, in building the relationship with our consumers. And last year, I talked about the new generation, right? Today I read an article, right, in Times of India where
Yeah, we did, right.
the startup that talks about how virtually you're able to wear, right, and see
Yeah.
look like, in your new dress, right? Because that's a big thing. Because earlier we used to go to the trial room, wear your no shirt and see, but now how do we bring that same experience to? I think that's the reason I'm saying that is going to be definitely a game changer, particularly due to the COVID. With more and more people taking the virtual route, to do their shopping and doing their other things.
Shilpa?
Right. Banking and financial services and consumer products and retail have been major adopters of deep technology. Can you give us some sense of the adoption, both in the consumer and BFSI spaces? Ranjan, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Then
A very
Alok.
interesting question, actually, because when you see, before pandemic, when you go to a startup bootcamp, you will see many more fintechs and insurtechs, and which talks like FS is quite a good adopter. We'll see how Alok is pitching in. But anyway, so it's not about limited to fintech or insurtech anymore. It is even big techs like Google, Apple, Facebook, and many more are playing their respective role and in financial sector. So they are basically disrupting the business the way it was, and their products are creating alternative way for banking or insurance industry. They don't want to be regulated by the regulators. But couple of example, if I say Apple Card, via markers, GPay through UPI, Facebook banking, and there are many more actually. On other hand, FS industry, if you see, sitting on a quite humongous data set, and big data analytics is helping them to to see, I'll say, the next best action that you can do with your particular customer. It could be, it is not about cross sell or upsell of the product. It is essentially how best you can provide services as compared to the fintech, and how you can increase the stickiness with the customer. There are many fintechs, you see many and many business cases like voice assistance, cash forecasting, churn score, real-time sentiment analysis when you are in a call actually with the customer. And through AI, artificial intelligence, I will say, but we are changing the way we are servicing to the customer. So from Capgemini side, we are engaged with one of the example. I will say that we engage with Google in terms of telematics aspects. So we are talking about connected car because Android, connected health because of Fitbit, distributed cloud space because of GCP, and there are many aspects that we are looking through partnership model, and the adoption is really high in FS industry, be it fintech, be it insurtech. And Alok, what do you think? Fintech or CPR tech?
So let me just give it a different twist. Okay. Now, if I broadly take CPR as an industry, so the way we have addressed, or let's say most of the companies have addressed, is they have actually gone into the value chain, okay, and how each of the value chain is getting disrupted, okay, and then aligning the respective technology in each of these areas. So let's say you talk about a major supply chain disruption post-pandemic, or let's say that the in-store experience becoming more and more relevant, okay, or the fulfillment areas in a typical retail store. So if you look at the technology adoption part of it, so many of the examples which, let's say, Nagarajan mentioned or Ranjan mentioned about AR, VR, or blockchain, we have actually been quite early adopters of these tools and technologies. So we have seen the traction almost 3-4 years back. The only difference then was it was at a POC level, but now it is actually at an execution level. So when we are talking to the client, they actually want to really execute and implement those tools and technologies. Now, I'll take one example. Let's say almost 2018 time frame, we actually did a blockchain implementation for one of our grocery clients in Netherlands. Okay, and that is essentially to really streamline their entire supply chain process. Okay, that's number one. If you look at the in-store experience part of it, we have something called Capgemini Dexter. Okay, that actually creates an immersive retail experience, and that has been combining all this AI, ML, and your personalization, robotics, all put together. So we see more and more people adapting to these kind of tools and technologies in the last few years, and post-pandemic, especially if you look at, this touchless, or let's say this, consumer experience, so the, in-store experience, everything has become very, very important. Now, apart from all this, one key element which I want to really highlight, I think Nagarajan will also be able to add, on top of that, food industry, if you look at per se, okay? So the global demand for the food is anticipated to grow at a 60% by 2050 kind of time frame. Now, most of the cases, if you see, the value chain is very complex, okay? There are lack of resources, the connectivity, everything, add up to really agricultural, inefficiencies, many of the parts. So we did something called a project farm, okay, in collaboration with our ecosystem called Applied Innovation Exchange, which Ranjan is part of, okay? And we collaborated with one of our global teams, and then built a solution with a social enterprise operating in East Africa called Agris, to provide the local farmers with the agriculture and support. And basically this entire package has helped in yielding the optimization and risk decrease services for all the small scale farmers. So apart from actually talking to the large clients, we also are getting into collaboration with a lot of social enterprises and social setups to deliver our solutions. I think on the food side, Nagarajan, if you want to add anything on that, that will be really interesting.
Yeah, sure. I think so. Definitely. So beyond the aspects of top line growth and bottom line growth, I think what is important is, are we making the lives right of people better? Right. It's not something beyond the money. Right. I think that's where some of the solutions, the deep tech will go a long way, in ensuring, that I talked about traceability. It's also about, the farming community, right, in East Africa or in impoverished countries, right? Are they, having good living right now? It also becomes important, for businesses to invest, right, on schools and infrastructure, right? How do we ensure there's well-being also on the last mile? That's why I talked about that deep impact on society, right? I think it's not just about disrupting the way we do things. Everything is also about are we able to do something that will make this planet, right, live longer for the new generation to come. I think we talked about 9 billion people, right, to be fed in 2050 is the projection as of now. So now, and with the climate change, with depleting water resources, with the other carbon emissions, everything, we're talking about this, and how do we really do our part, right, to really minimize all these, so we can have a longer healthy living for our next generation. That's these technologies will definitely play an important role.
Yeah. And before the webinar, Alok was saying, grocery has really gone up. So I guess food is going to become a really important part of.
True. Absolutely. And you'll be surprised, that the adoption of, let's say, big data or some of these technologies, which is really, really very high in this sector right now. I mean, as we're talking, really artificial intelligence, in fact, we actually use for this particular project, as I'm talking, we use AI to determine the farming patterns, and that's through big data, and we generate insights from the data to make recommendations. So you can imagine the kind of detailing it is going into, and that's going to be the key. And it actually uses a lot of machine learning to make the platform, applicable at scale by connecting it to the cell phones also. So imagine how things are going to change over the next 10-15 years as we're talking.
Fascinating. Yeah. A lot of audience questions coming in, Shilpa.
Yeah, we have this audience question from Suresh Babu. How imperative is blockchain in deep tech startup? Can you give us a few examples of application of blockchain in deep tech?
Who wants to take that?
Yeah, can I take it?
Yeah, sure. I'll add on. Yeah.
Okay, so blockchain, as you can see, it's a distributed platform, and some of the business case already been implemented in a couple of banks. They're using blockchain for payment transaction. Okay, so the payment which was taking ages, it is now smooth. It's just a movement of money within the chain. I will say, rather than setting the it is not movement. It is there, but the informations are moving quite well. The only two aspects that I would pitch in is about trust. the parties that they are in the chain, they should trust each other. And it is also they're working in a competitive environment. So the competition is also there. And I talked about trade finance, business where there are nearly 9 banks. They're working in a common chain and serving their customer. That is on trade finance side. Similarly, loan syndication. Okay, so it has potential in Australia. There are a lot more experiments going on. But again, it has to be the financial industry is mostly regulated, and it has to be approved by RBI or in case of India, or any operation or any emerging tech that you are producing, preparing for launch. It has to be approved, well settled within the banking community. And these are all 3-4 examples I'm just sharing. But supply chain has the greater role. If you see, as I mentioned, blockchain as a technology, it's sector agnostic. It is not limited to FS. It is not limited to CPR. And eventually, if you see, Suresh, if I take an example, when you are browsing, you don't talk about TCP/IP protocol. It is already embedded. And 10 years down the line, if you see, blockchain is already embedded. Whatever you are doing, you may be using it. Yeah. So
you may not even realize it. You're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, one interesting example I would like to say, you look at this. Let's say that food is something which is actually common to all of us. Okay, so we did a concept called farm to fork. It's a blockchain solution for one of the customers. So what it means essentially is, from the farmland till the restaurant, the food you eat, the complete tracking, tracing, and managing the entire value chain through blockchain. Okay, we have a solution called Trusted Data Exchange, which is essentially around that. Now that actually will tell you which farm you're growing at, what's the level of let's say because health factors and all these parameters have become very, very important. So everybody can come to know what's the calorie level, and who has produced it, where it has come from, and each of these stages it is going to be. So that's just an example on food. Similarly, on education, let's say you talk about education for that matter. All your certificates, all your previous experiences, your past experiences. Now we are doing, let's say, the third-party check when a person joins. But with blockchain, everything will be available, accessible across. So in each industry, if you see, blockchain is going to be very, very relevant. And as I was mentioning, a few years back when I was there in one of those, forums in New York City, they were actually talking at a POC level. But today, as I'm talking to you, there are multiple clients who have actually implemented this right now across industry. Yeah.
Olam, have you used it, blockchain, in your operations so far?
Yes, yeah, we have done a trial. Again, the supply chain is because we have a big supply chain. We have to procure from farmers, from buying agents. We have done it. I think one thing I want to add beyond technology, I think blockchain, is also it needs the parties to come together, right? Because reasons why it was not picking up the last 2 years, because the trust, right? Because I may be a supplier. I have a competition as another supplier. I have 2 more competition, and finally, we have to collaborate together, right? And feed into the blockchain, and then it goes to the end customer, right? So I think that's where the whole, beyond technology, right? How do we, as a consortium, right? How do we all come together? How do you all trust each other, and then give what the end parties want? I think that inertia, I think, is now going off. Now, more and more companies across industries now are more open to embrace that, right? With trust. With I think even technology has improved, right, from what it was. A lot of use cases are there, for us to refer to, right, and then build that trust. I think with that trust, I think there'll be more adoption of it. That's why it's not just about the technology; it's about how the companies can come to in the industry, and bring that the experience to the end customer.
Okay. I also have a question here. We thought we'll bring this a little in later, but anyway, this has come, and it's always interesting for our younger readers, younger viewers. Manoj Kumar Parida asking, what are the skills required from present-day graduates to work for deep tech startups?
Okay, so Nagarajan, if you want to hire, what kind of skills you will have? If I'm going to hire, what kind of skills? I'll talk about that. No, I think I'll take that to start with. Okay, so in fact, a lot of these IT services companies, they've created real strong platforms, okay, where, training platforms essentially, so that people can be really cross-trained and, trained and upskilled, and they can be actually, put across in various projects. Now, we have actually, interestingly, we have collaborated with a tech company called Fathom. Okay, it actually is, basically what it does is, with it we predict the future impact of technology on skills and roles, so which is very important, which is very interesting as well. So typically, I would advise these people who really come, to join ID companies in a typical deep tech. I think first and foremost, they have to be really open about learning. That's one, number one. You should not come with a preconceived notion that this is the technology and I'm going to only work on this, let's say AI or ML or whatever it is. Because each of these platforms today, if you look at, it's actually getting enhanced over a period of time, and suddenly it goes obsolete. Now, it's very important for us to really adapt to the changes. I think that's very important. Rest, once we take somebody on board, we really ensure that these are the people who get trained, through our various technology platforms, or let's say through our partners. Typically, let's say the cloud partners like your Google, Azure, or AWS. They actually provide a lot of trainings on topics like machine learning, data management, analytics, and so on and so forth. So there's a complete ecosystem which is available for these people. Important part is they have to be open, they have to be changed, they have to be more adaptive. Is my take.
Okay.
Yeah, from my side, I would say that we were just doing a survey, of the universities. I think one good thing I see is a lot of universities, in their MTech curriculum, they have looked at cybersecurity, they looked at blockchain, they looked at AML. That has become a mainstream subject. I think that even the education universities have adopted themselves to bring this curriculum. And also, I see that more and more organizations in India are going to we do have a good internship programs, because as they do the courses, it's also important to know how the companies can have a tie-up with these universities, where we can sponsor them for a 6 to 9 month internship, which will give them a very valuable experience, of trying out those things, working along with experienced colleagues, right, to see how they go about solving a business problem. I think that kind of experience will definitely enrich their general perspective of the go about, which will also improve their right as they complete their course. And that's another important. I think there'll be more and more collaboration happening between the and the universities to provide more internship opportunities.
Internship. Okay. Ranjan, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So from Applied Innovation Exchange perspective, we I'll say we engage with academia more, to understand, because they have their own fresh mindset and they have their own way of working, and it is something disruptive way. But essentially what I see is, the common questions being asked is what I should learn, what I should do so that I'm well received in the industry. I usually say that there are three things which is going to be play a long run. I will say the first thing is everything is about service. You call it as a platform as a service, code is as a service, infra as a service. That's the cloud part I'm talking. The second one is about bringing exponential intelligence. How you can bring it, could be playing with the data, it could be playing with the IoT, it could be on all analytics part I'm talking, beyond statistical and computational, that which is happening now. And the last part is, which is very essential in this virtual world, is hyper personalization. So when you are saying hyper personalization, it is about connected experience, connected banking, connected insurance. And when I go for a buying my dream car, automatically my insurance payments tagged to my purchase, because I am talking about connected across sectors. So OEMs connected to banking, connected to insurance. That's the future is all about. So these three things essentially they should take care of.
Okay.
We have
Shilpa?
a question from Manjunath KS. This is to Mr. Nagarajan. How can we ensure technologies like AI, IoT, etc. do not result in unemployment in the food sector, because it's a large employer in countries like India?
That's a good question. I think, as I said earlier, right, we still have to feed 9 billion people, right? So there is still a lot more to to look at. I think the way we have to look at this. So when we bring in this technology innovation, to bring in the efficiency, the way we produce, the way we run our factories, that will produce the food output. What it also means, that we are going to, leave those manpower to look at things which are more strategic, right? Now, instead of putting 10 people who just go operate a factory, now it's opportunity, for us to reskill those people, so leave the day-to-day mundane job, to the these technologies, which means that we are giving an opportunity, for people, to look at on what else, which other area, and they can contribute actually, right? I think, and also as I said, there's more food to produce, and there's more sorry. Yeah. So that's my answer. I think.
Sorry. Go on.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go on.
Okay. So my point here is that yes, there will be temporary disruption. I mean, no question about it. But I think because we are already doing this in a lot of other countries, and I would see it as an opportunity, for to look at new ways of agriculture, new ways of food production. How do we reduce wastage? There are a lot of areas, that needs bright minds, to do R&D and focus on those things, than the regular run of the mill things.
Okay. Let me ask you this for Alok and Ranjan. Capgemini has been collaborating with deep tech startups and the allied ecosystem. What can you tell us about it? Do you mentor them? Do you go to market together? Which areas have they helped you in?
Okay. Yeah, Ranjan, you go ahead.
Okay, fine. So in Capgemini, so Sujit, we have a specific startup catalyst program. It's a group startup framework aimed at enhancing business relevance through a curated startup ecosystem, and essentially deep tech startup is one part of it. And it starts with ecosystem design, assessment, collaboration, framework, engaging startups with predefined legal process, documentation, and onboarding them in a central repository, because it can be accessible across Capgemini world. There is no specific India startup. There is no specific, Europe startup. It is a combination of all the startups that we do. And my team, one of my team unit, they do. And we have also partnership with a couple of examples. If I say NSRCL on startup of hub of IMB, then Agni India, and then IIT Madras incubation cell, and many more to groom and mentor the startups at very early stage. And we are investing also, dedicated team quite focused on, such ecosystem building activity. We have invested, Tuko, Gelrose, and many more startups recently. And it is, Altran as an example, there are investment from a partnership perspective. And it is not limited to startups, but we also mentor with academia. And in fact, I know last webinar was with IIT Dhanbad, if I remember correctly. So recently we collaborated with IIT Dhanbad to bring business innovation in automotive and aerospace. It's not creating value to our clients. In Capgemini also, we are focusing sustainability by leveraging deep tech. Our transition is towards fully electric fleet by 2030, and we are ordering hybrid electric car vans, replacing nearly 12,000 odd vehicle. Similarly, net zero carbon footprint by 2030. That's one of the aspects, and Alok plays quite an instrumental role in some of our client initiatives also from CPR side.
Yeah, these cars you're talking about are your Capgemini cars, is it?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So that's the engineering division which they have come up with this real good stuff. Okay, and I think just to add on, so this whole ecosystem, what he spoke about, Ranjan spoke about, I think we go in a very planned manner. It's like one hand we have a set of startups, for example, but then it is not just about a blue sky thinking and we just go and talk to any startup. It's very strategic in nature. That means we talk to our clients. We really try to understand, the requirements, then a lot of through the client engagement activities, and then we try to assess what is available with us and what is that which is not available but available outside. Okay, and then whether it makes sense for us to really invest on those or partner with somebody else. That's the kind of model what we think through. Okay, and then finally we create that ecosystem. And it is, as Ranjan mentioned, we talk to the entire because we have this AI network all across the globe. So the startups in India, in San Francisco, in let's say Singapore, in any of the geographies, we talk to them, we collaborate with them. And for startups also, it's a good model because they get access to a lot of the new clients. Okay, to really pilot their products and solutions. So it's a win-win for all of us. And from our perspective, we are actually able to scale up without really reinventing the wheel. It's a very simple business case for us.
Absolutely. Just to add, the 5G, right? 5G, is big, right? Is the latest thing. We are tap into that, and we have this, captive center in Chennai, right? So we want to know. We have some very interesting use cases. We want to give a try, right? And 5G is not India yet, right? That's where we are looking to collaborate with Capgemini. They have this 5G lab open in Mumbai, right, last week. To look at how we can collaborate with Capgemini to look at few use cases. We have real use cases that we can try out in the Capgemini 5G lab, and then that's where the whole ecosystem comes to play, right? Where the startups get access to clients like us, right? Where we're looking for some problem, some solution to the problem, and then there's a lab that we can try it out, right? And then we can look at what is going well, what is not going well. And then we can take this concept back to our business and say, this is how we could solve a problem. And that's how the whole collaboration of the ecosystem really plays this situation.
Okay, interesting. Shilpa?
Question from Amiya Dhal. Any example of blockchain-enabled technologies reaching a large chunk of Indian population, but something laypersons aren't aware of?
Somebody wants to start a business, I think. Anything with large applications in India?
Probably, Sujit, I will say that, a couple of examples, smart contract. Okay. So it's a very simple, you have your contract and it has its own predefined events. Once you fill that contract, and all the events will be triggered automatically. It can be, from a supply chain perspective, or smart KYC as an example. Once you do the KYC, you don't have to do many times in the KYC process, because once you have a central system which drives all this KYC process, you don't have to get into many more processes. Simple, straightforward. Because when you go for unbanked customer, when they go for opening their accounts, they have to fill many more applications, and it replicates across each banks. So that's where the blockchain has his role. I will say the smart KYC, smart contract. It could be a lease agreement between a landlord and a tenant. So that could be a simple examples on in terms of how you can leverage blockchain.
Okay. This is where you said the banks have to come together. Okay.
I would actually put it in a very simple terms, Sujit. It should be where it impacts the most. For example, let's say we spoke about, let's say, food, or let's say certificates, or let's say healthcare, or let's say finances, banking, any of these areas, which is actually directly impacting the lives of people. We can use blockchain, because that's where you get the maximum leverage out of this technology. Because let's say you for an employer, let's say the certificates are, they're able to track the certificates, for example. Or let's say for a restaurant, he's able to, let's say, the consumers are able to track the food, for example. So, or banking, or any of the sector, which is impacting the lives directly, I think blockchain is a way forward.
Okay. I have a couple of questions here. One is from Paresh Gupta. How can deep tech startups influence sustainability in financial services and CPR industries?
Okay, so I think one of the first things which I mentioned about the deep tech startups, actually, out of the entire set of deep techs, if you look at almost 10%. I mean, if 97% is quoted figure, then I would say it is almost 10%. They at least address one of the sustainable development goals of the UN. So that means everybody is driven towards a sustainable goal, whether it is climate change, whether it is health, whether it is well-being, anything for that matter. So any deep tech startup which comes, they actually address these one of these areas. So and going forward also, I think it is not about the deep tech startup. Everybody is going to be sustainable. I mean, people like you and me also, we have to be more and more sustainable in the way we do our business, or because every client we have spoken to, they have a clear mandate about sustainability.
Yeah.
I don't see any client today who don't have a mandate about sustainability. So they have a team dedicated for that.
Yeah. And if you see in the insurance industry, their investment goes into sustainability side, be it carbon meter. You have large forest, you have a carbon meter, you can sell it to any oil industry. So this is one of the example. Similarly, looking at ripen area, agro insurance as an example. Agriculture side, you have many more involvement of deep tech, where you can manage the harvesting process altogether. Then there is blockchain, supply chain across managing all this agro side. And there are many examples, I will say. And sustainability is not about banking, insurance, or CPR. It is applicable across industry, and that's how it is actually. And as Alok mentioned, 97%, somehow 50 some area, health and well-being, 80% deep techs they support actually on this relevant 17 SDG goals.
Shilpa?
Yeah, so maybe first with Nagarajan, what is your advice to engineering students aspiring to enter the profession?
Yeah, I think deep tech is a way forward, right? So we're going to see more and more of this. And while we talk about few technologies right now, but there'll be more and more. As Alok said, everything has a life cycle, right? We started something, after 5 years, something else has to come. So I think it is going to be the the future, for the world in general, to tackle the challenges, right? The numerous challenges we're facing today. So definitely, this is an area, that people can look at, and also I talked about, so for example, cybersecurity, is other important. We talked about many things, but security, is going to be extremely important, and I see a lot of good courses, which are in the curriculum, focusing particularly on cybersecurity, which is going to really take a mainstream role to ensure that all the good things, nice technology we talked about, it is all deployed in a secure manner, no compromise on privacy, no compromise on data theft. We keep hearing about this, right? Even big companies now are having troubles with cybersecurity data theft. So that's going to be very important. And I think, as Alok said, I think what is important is the openness, right? Because technologies keep changing. Every other day, things are different. So people have to be, while they may learn certain technologies, but what is important, to understand the concept, and mathematics particularly, right, is going to play an important role. If you look at the AIML, right, it's all about statistics. How do you apply your mathematics? I think now this is a time where we really put what we learn in maths to put the good use, right, as to solve use cases. So be open, be sound on your your core strength, on the mathematical things, and also be open to changing, and also with all these internship, other programs, I'm sure there'll be a lot of opportunities for people to get some real experience before they go into the mainstream industries.
What level of mathematics is required, you think?
I think, for example, statistics, right? Earlier people used to say BSc statistics, okay, I will not do, but now I think statistics has really taking a mainstream. If you want to become a data scientist, you want to do a data modeling, which is two important components in your AI. I think that even it is not a bad idea for people to aspire to take MSc statistics and a lot of specialization in that field as well. It's going to be a very important field in the future, actually. Just to put an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more question.
Yeah.
This is
I also have a question. Okay, go on.
This is from Vaishnavi M. How can deep tech startups formed by university students secure funding? As the panelists mentioned that deep tech startups required huge funding in the initial stages.
Yes.
Do you go to universities, Alok?
Okay. If there is a strong business case, I think we can look at that. That's definitely an option. But when I say it needs a lot of funding, you also need to look at the second statement. What I made was a lot of venture capitalists are willing to fund that. Okay. So it is essentially depending on the concept. So I think I'll just add on to what Nagarajan said when he says understanding of maths. I think little bit of I would say a compassion, towards the society, how things are changing around. I think that is very, very important, apart from our technology, knowledge, everything, because that will trigger a lot of ideas which you can actually bring in as part of your business case. And that lot of venture capitalists actually see that, and all this sustainability or, SDGs, whatever we're talking about, it is something to do with our connect with the society at large. I think that is important. And the second thing is, I think, it's like skill, reskill, and upskill. Okay, these are the three things which you need to really keep in mind. So, but coming back to the point, yes, it is possible, provided you have a strong business case. I think that it's not about only Capgemini. There are many takers or many venture capitalists who would really fund it.
For all kinds of technology. I thought one of you mentioned that the bulk of the funding at the moment is going to AI, or isn't it? Is it?
No, it is across. It is AI.
It is across.
ML, yeah, it is across. AI, ML, quantum computing, like the blockchain, every logic.
IoTs.
IoTs, absolutely.
Yeah, IoT. Okay. I also have a question here from Karthik Rajasundaram. How can deep tech help in making fintech more accessible to a larger audience? Currently, knowledge on things like Bitcoin is limited to a select few. I mean, that reminded me, I was trying to teach my mother how to use Google Pay today. And she was, of course, but I thought it was very simple. But then she's finding it still tough to, she doesn't even want to touch it.
So I think probably the voice assistants as an example, just to talk about it, WhatsApp banking, SMS banking. There are a lot more banking process coming where you don't need internet. It could be through messaging banking as well. So these are all couple of you don't need a real smartphone to do banking. This is one sector from a banking side, and similarly. I think in this case, voice assistance is creating, I'll say a lot more business case. It could be from a service side, it could be from selling side, it could be, I'll say referral perspective or cross-sell perspective. So I think, my daughter talks to Alexa in terms of, rock, paper, scissors. So this is how she plays with Alexa. She just started talking and she's playing well. So this is all about.
Yeah, I think voice and facial recognition. I think these are things which are really taken a big leap. Okay, so facial recognition again, a lot of cases we are seeing. Let's say your detection of an individual, or let's say go to a banking system. It's become very, very common. Okay. So that's going to be, because and more people are actually wanting a touchless because of pandemic. It's more and more touchless, experience. So these are the things which are going to be very, very important.
Okay, facial recognition. There are no major privacy concerns and stuff.
Not really. I mean, it is so many of the cases. So typically, let's say where in some of the examples where we spoke to some of the clients where they really want to know the, let's say, the details about the person. Okay. So what they do is there is it's like you accept, the terms and conditions you accept, then only they will get into that. So absolutely. So they go through the proper channel. It's as per the guidelines, as per the norms, they do it. But it helps because it is about a touchless experience once you're,
Okay.
In fact, you won't believe we are even doing facial recognition for the former registration, right? Because
really,
okay, you can't do biometric, right? They keep plowing and you can't. There's nothing.
They don't get those fingerprints. Okay.
So to uniquely identify, former we have deployed, facial.
You deployed it.
Yeah. So I think that's something now is going to be, wherever there are I know there are few countries which are still. Restricting on the privacy part, but wherever it is not the case, it's definitely a good way forward to do some unique identification of anybody, right?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. You use that in India as well? Have you introduced it or
No, I think it's in Africa.
Africa, is it? Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, we are almost out of time. Final words, Mr. Nagarajan, to all those who are aspiring to build their own ventures and to young engineers.
Yeah, all the very best. And I think the ecosystem is there, but ecosystem is going to become more stronger. Right? As I said, it's no longer nice to have. Every industry, every mainstream industry is looking at this deep tech, as their a key tool, to differentiate themselves, from the competition. So definitely, plenty of opportunities. I like to wish all the best, for the budding entrepreneurs, more entrepreneurs we need in India, particularly, right? Startups. So there's plenty of opportunity, plenty of funding, coming their way, as Alok and Ranjan mentioned. I think so. There's nothing. They should not be stopping, and they should go full with full speed.
Okay, Alok.
Yeah, I think from my end, I would like to say all the best first of all, and second is, apart from making a lot of mullahs or money, I think social consciousness has to be there. I think they have to be more and more connected to the society and working on those lines. And the other important thing is, please understand that there is a complete set of ecosystem available for you, and where you can just reach out. There are people to help you. Don't think that you're all alone. There are people like us, all of us, who are there to help you out and make your story successful. So just reach out, come with a good concept, and we are there to support you. Yeah.
Ranjan.
So all the best first of all, and I will say that mastering in engineering tech is not about producing better product and services, as deep tech is about problem oriented rather than technology oriented. And look at how it affects your daily work. Look at how it can affect how to lead your lives and how it can shape your future, and that is what you should look at. And here you go, you'll have an idea, and there are many more funding will come, and you can make it a tangible outcome from that idea. So that's all about it.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, so a lot of opportunities. Just look around you, the kind of problems that are there, and you can probably use some deep tech technologies to kind of try and solve it. There is support available from companies like Capgemini, Olam. There's funding available. So I think it's just a matter of determination and perseverance. So thanks a lot. Great discussion. Thanks a lot, Nagarajan, Alok, Ranjan. Thanks from TOI and thanks Techies. Hope to have you again some other time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye. Bye.